All right, so let's say you're thinking about expanding your business,
Yeah.
taking things to the next level, maybe even setting up shop in like a global hub somewhere exciting like Hong Kong.
Yeah. That's a big move.
It is. It's exciting, but then it also kind of hits you like, whoa, where do I even start with like office space in a place like that?
It can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, just figuring out the whole office space situation, especially somewhere like Hong Kong.
Exactly. And that's why we're here today. We did a deep dive into this awesome resource. It's called Office Rental in Hong Kong. What you need to know.
Yeah, we wanted to break it all down for you, like pull out the most important stuff, the things that are going to actually help you get this done.
Think of it like your cheat sheet or like a shortcut to understanding the Hong Kong office rental scene.
Mm.
We've gone through it all, so you don't have to. And by the end of this, you're going to be able to make smart decisions about your office space without all that stress.
Exactly. We're going to try to cover everything you need to know, like the different types of office spaces you can get and what makes the prices go up and down and why Hong Kong's such a great place to do business and the stuff you absolutely have to check in those lease agreements.
Right, because that stuff can be tricky.
Yeah. And then, of course, we'll talk about how to find the perfect spot for your office in Hong Kong. And we've got some really great tips to make the whole rental process way smoother.
I'm kind of fascinated already by just the whole idea of getting an office in a city like Hong Kong. There's so much
Yeah.
energy there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're going to explore. We'll look at the types of offices you can get, what affects the prices, the benefits of being in Hong Kong, and the lease terms you'll encounter, how to pick the best location, and some practical steps to ensure a smooth rental process.
All right, let's get started then. So first things first, when we talk about office spaces in Hong Kong, what are the main options we're looking at?
Okay, so the guide lays out three main types. The first one is the classic traditional office.
Like your own dedicated space.
Exactly. You rent the space and it's all yours. You're in charge of everything, setting it up, furnishing it, getting the utilities connected, sorting out maintenance security, the whole nine yards.
So you basically have complete freedom to design it exactly the way you want it, make it match your brand.
Yeah, that's a big advantage. You have total control over the look and feel of your office, but you're also responsible for all the initial setup costs and the ongoing management, which can be a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Full control also means full responsibility.
Yeah.
And the guide mentions that these leases are usually on the longer side, right?
Yeah, usually somewhere between 2 to 5 years, which can be good for stability. But you have to think about whether your business is likely to change a lot in that time or if you need more flexibility.
That's a good point. So traditional offices are all about having your own space and customizing it. Now, what about these co-working spaces I keep hearing about? They seem to be pretty popular.
Yeah, co-working spaces are definitely having a moment. They're a great option for startups, freelancers,
Yeah.
anyone who wants a more modern and flexible way of working.
So how do they work exactly?
Well, instead of renting a whole office, you rent a desk or maybe a small private office within a larger shared space.
So you're basically sharing this space with other businesses.
Exactly. And the great thing is it usually comes fully furnished and equipped, so you can just move in and get to work.
That sounds pretty convenient. No need to go furniture shopping.
And you also get access to shared facilities like meeting rooms, kitchens, breakout areas, things like that.
Plus, I imagine there's a lot of potential for networking, meeting other people in the same space.
Absolutely. The social aspect is a big draw for a lot of people. But of course, you do have to share the space, so there's less privacy, and you might not have as much control over your immediate environment as you would in a traditional office.
So it's a trade-off, more flexibility and community, but maybe a bit less privacy.
Exactly. And another thing to keep in mind is that the cost per desk can actually be higher than in a traditional office, especially if you need space for a whole team.
Interesting. So traditional offices are all about control. Co-working is about flexibility and community. Now, there's this other option. Serviced offices. How do those fit in?
Serviced offices are kind of like the best of both worlds. They offer private office suites that are already furnished and equipped, similar to a traditional office.
So you get your own space, but without all the hassle of setting it up.
Right. Plus, they usually come with more flexible lease terms than traditional offices. And the best part is that a lot of services are included in the price. Things like reception, IT support, cleaning.
So it's like having an office manager taking care of all the little things.
Yeah, exactly. You can just focus on your work and leave the day-to-day management to someone else. It's super convenient, especially if you're new to Hong Kong and don't want to deal with all the logistics.
That sounds like a pretty sweet deal, but I'm guessing it comes at a price.
It does. Service offices are usually more expensive than traditional offices, but you're paying for the convenience and the all-inclusive package, which can be a big help with budgeting because you know exactly what your monthly costs will be.
So it's about weighing the benefits against the costs. All right, so we've got traditional offices for when you want complete control, co-working spaces for flexibility and community, and service offices for convenience. But one thing that always comes up with office space is the price. And in a place like Hong Kong, I imagine it can vary quite a bit. So what are the main factors that influence those office rental prices?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Location, location. It's a classic for a reason, and it's especially true in Hong Kong.
Makes sense. The closer you are to the action, the more you're going to pay.
Right. The most expensive areas are the central business districts, or CBDs, like Central Admiralty and Causeway Bay. These are the prime spots where you'll find all the big companies, the fancy buildings, and of course, super easy access to transportation.
So if you want to be in the heart of it all, be prepared to shell out some serious cash.
Exactly.
Look at that.
But if you're on a tighter budget or just don't need to be in the most prestigious location, you can definitely find more affordable options in other areas like industrial districts or places that are a bit further out from the city center.
So it's about striking a balance between your budget, your image, and the convenience for your team.
Exactly. And it's not just about the address itself. You also have to think about how easy it is for your employees to get to work and for clients to visit you.
So location is a huge factor when it comes to price.
Yeah.
What else plays a big role?
Well, as we talked about earlier, the type of office space you choose also has a big impact on the price. Traditional offices, co-working spaces, and serviced offices all have different pricing structures based on what they offer.
Right, you're paying for the type of space, the level of service, the flexibility, all of that.
Exactly. And then you also have to consider the amenities.
The extras like gyms and cafes and stuff like that.
Yeah, those can definitely add to the cost, but they can also make a big difference in terms of employee morale and productivity. It's all about weighing the costs and benefits.
So you're paying for the whole package. The space, the location, the amenities, the vibe. Everything contributes to the price tag.
Exactly. But even though Hong Kong can be pricey, there are some really compelling reasons to set up shop there. So many businesses choose Hong Kong for a reason, and it's not just about the amazing food.
So what are some of the key advantages of having an office in Hong Kong?
Well, for starters, Hong Kong is famous for being super business friendly. Their policies are designed to make it easy for businesses to thrive and grow.
That sounds promising. What are some examples of those policies?
Well, for one thing, they have a really simple tax system, and the corporate tax rates are pretty low compared to a lot of other places in the world. They're also big on free trade, so there aren't many tariffs or barriers to importing and exporting goods. And the government generally takes a hands-off approach to business, which a lot of companies appreciate.
So less red tape, more freedom to operate.
Exactly. And the legal system is based on English common law, which is familiar and stable, especially for international businesses.
That creates a sense of stability and predictability, which is essential for business.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, Hong Kong has a fantastic talent pool. They've got a highly skilled and diverse workforce with people from all over the world.
So finding qualified employees shouldn't be too difficult.
Not at all. And the workforce is known for being well-educated, multilingual, and having a strong work ethic. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, co-working spaces can be a great way to tap into that diverse talent pool.
So a business-friendly environment and a talented workforce. Two big wins for Hong Kong. What about geographically? How does its location in Asia benefit businesses?
Oh, its location is a huge asset. Hong Kong is basically the gateway to mainland China and the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. It's got incredible infrastructure, a world-class airport, a busy port, and a super efficient transportation network within the city itself.
So it's easy to get around and connect with other parts of the region.
Exactly. It's a major hub for travel and trade. To give you an idea, a flight to Singapore takes about 4 hours. Tokyo, about 4.5, Shanghai, it's around 3 hours, and even Sydney is only about 9 hours away.
Wow, those are some impressive flight times. It really highlights how connected Hong Kong is to the rest of Asia.
Exactly. And that connectivity is crucial for businesses that operate regionally or globally.
So let's say you've decided on Hong Kong. You've got a good sense of the location and the type of office space you want. Now it's time to tackle the lease agreement, which I know can be a bit daunting. What are some of the key things our listeners should be paying attention to?
Yeah, lease agreements are definitely important. You want to make sure you understand everything before you sign on the dotted line. The standard commercial office lease in Hong Kong is usually for 2 to 3 years.
That's quite a commitment.
It is. Landlords generally prefer longer leases because it gives them more security, but you might be able to negotiate a shorter lease, especially if you're going for a co-working space or a serviced office.
So there's some wiggle room there.
There can be, but it often comes at a higher price,
Right.
basic supply and demand.
Of course. So what about flexibility within the agreement? Are there any clauses or anything that can provide a bit of an out if needed?
Yeah, there are a few things you can try to negotiate. For example, if you're planning to do a lot of renovations in a traditional office, you can ask for a rent-free period while you're getting the space ready.
Hmm.
That can help with cash flow in the beginning.
That's a great tip. I wouldn't have thought of that.
And you definitely want to check the rent review clauses, make sure they're clear and fair so you're not hit with any surprise rent hikes down the road.
That's a good point. You don't want to get caught off guard.
Another thing you can try to negotiate is a break clause, which basically lets you get out of the lease early under certain conditions. It can be a safety net if your business plans change.
But I'm guessing there are some strings attached to those break clauses.
Usually, yeah, there might be financial penalties or other conditions you have to meet.
So it's important to read the fine print and make sure you understand everything.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to negotiate the security deposit as well. You might be able to get it reduced.
So it's worth pushing back a bit and seeing what you can get.
Definitely. The key is to do your research, know what the market rates are, and be prepared to walk away if the terms aren't favorable.
So don't be afraid to say no if it's not the right fit.
Exactly. And speaking of things to watch out for, there are often hidden costs associated with renting an office that go beyond just the monthly rent.
What kind of hidden costs are we talking about?
Well, things like management fees for the building government rates and taxes, air conditioning charges, legal fees for reviewing the lease, and even reinstatement costs, which are the fees for returning the office to its original condition when you move out.
So those costs can really add up if you're not careful.
They can. So it's really important to factor them into your budget and make sure you understand all the costs involved before you commit to anything.
So read that lease agreement carefully and maybe even get a lawyer to look it over.
That's always a good idea. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Agreed. Okay, so we've talked about the lease agreement. Now let's go back to the location. We've already discussed the CBDs and the higher costs associated with those prime areas. But what other factors should our listener be considering when choosing a location for their office in Hong Kong?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Hong Kong has amazing public transportation. So don't feel like you have to limit your search to the central areas. You can often find great options in other districts that are well connected by the MTR or buses, and those commutes might only be like 10 or 20 minutes longer.
So it's worth exploring those other areas, especially if you're on a budget.
Absolutely. And think about your employees too. If they can get to work easily and without a lot of stress, that's going to make them happier and more productive. And if you have clients visiting you regularly, you want to make sure it's easy for them to find you.
It's all about creating a convenient and accessible location for everyone involved.
Right. And don't underestimate the impact of the surrounding environment on employee morale and satisfaction. Things like access to lunch spots, gyms, shops, things that make their day-to-day lives easier and more enjoyable.
Those little things can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And you also want to consider the safety and security of the area. You want your employees to feel comfortable coming to work.
So it's not just about the office itself, it's about the whole neighborhood.
Exactly. It's about creating a positive and supportive work environment, and the location plays a big part in that.
All right, so location, but also the vibe and the amenities and the accessibility for everyone.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What are some of your top tips for making the whole office rental process in Hong Kong as smooth and successful as possible?
Well, first and foremost, I would highly recommend getting a real estate agent who specializes in commercial properties in Hong Kong.
So someone who really knows the local market? Exactly. They can help you find suitable properties that fit your budget and your needs. They can also help you negotiate the lease terms, and they often have access to properties that aren't publicly listed.
So they can open doors that you wouldn't be able to open on your own.
Right. They're invaluable, especially if you're new to Hong Kong.
What other advice do you have for our listener?
Before you start looking at properties, it's really important to figure out how much space you actually need. And don't just think about your current team size. Think about your future growth plans, too.
So plan for the future, don't just focus on the present.
Exactly. If you can get a space that can accommodate your growth over the next few years, you'll save yourself a lot of hassle and expense down the road. And think about the type of work you do. Do you need a lot of private offices, or would an open plan layout work better for you? How many meeting rooms do you need? Do you need storage space? All of these things factor into the equation.
So it's about being strategic and anticipating your future needs.
Right. And speaking of being strategic, you should also factor in your long-term growth plans when you're choosing a space. Think about how many people you might hire in the next few years, whether you'll need more equipment or storage space. Choosing a space that can grow with you will prevent you from having to move prematurely.
So future-proofing your office space is key.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's better to slightly overestimate your space needs than underestimate them, just to be on the safe side.
All right, so plan for the long-term, leverage expert help, and have a clear understanding of your space needs. Now let's talk about amenities again. We touched on how they can affect the price, but beyond that, what role do they play in the overall office rental experience?
Amenities can really make or break your office environment. They affect the functionality, the atmosphere, the overall vibe. Let's start with the essentials, the absolute must-haves.
Things you can't live without.
Exactly. In this day and age, reliable high-speed internet is non-negotiable. If your internet is slow or spotty, it's going to kill productivity. And in Hong Kong, you absolutely need good air conditioning. It's essential for a comfortable and productive work environment. And then for businesses that operate outside of normal business hours or have teams in different time zones, 24/7 access to the office is really important.
Those are definitely the basics. Now, what about the more fun amenities, the ones that can really boost employee morale and make the office a more enjoyable place to be?
Yeah, those are the perks that can make a big difference. A well-designed office with thoughtful amenities can really improve employee morale and productivity. For example, having a dedicated breakout area where people can relax and recharge can actually lead to better focus and concentration when they're back at their desks.
So it's not just about working all the time. It's
No.
about having spaces to unwind and socialize too.
Exactly. And even something as simple as a well-equipped kitchen can make a big difference. It's convenient for employees and it shows that you care about their well-being.
It's those little touches that can create a more positive work environment.
Exactly. And don't forget about natural light. Having windows and natural light in the workspace can improve mood, reduce eye strain, and boost productivity.
So it's about more than just having a fancy office. It's about creating a space that supports employee well-being and helps them do their best work.
Right. It's an investment in your team.
So how can a business effectively weigh the cost of these amenities against the potential benefits?
Well, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. For example, an on-site gym might increase your rent and maintenance costs, but it could also lead to healthier and happier employees, which could mean fewer sick days and higher productivity.
So it's about looking at the long-term impact.
Exactly. And the same goes for things like parking and on-site catering. They come with costs, but they also offer convenience and can save employees time and money.
So it's a balancing act.
It is. And it's important to consider the grade of the building, too. Higher grade buildings tend to have more amenities and they might be of a higher quality. So that's another factor to weigh in your decision making.
Wow, this has been incredibly informative. I feel like we've really covered everything. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind when navigating the Hong Kong office rental scene?
The Hong Kong office market has a lot to offer. There's something for everyone, from traditional offices to co-working spaces to serviced offices. It all depends on your needs, your budget, and your vision for your business.
It's about finding the right fit.
Exactly. So take your time, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask for help from local experts. And most importantly, don't rush the process. It's a big decision, so make sure you find a space that you and your team will love.
Great advice. So for you, the listener, as you embark on this exciting journey of finding the perfect office space in Hong Kong, here's something to ponder. Given how quickly the world of work is changing, how do you think the ideal office space in a dynamic city like Hong Kong will need to adapt in the years to come to best serve the needs of both businesses and their employees? It's a fascinating question to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.